Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Like I want my life,
Hmm.
and it's super hard, and I have no time, and I sleep very little. But like by wanting that life,
Hmm.
I can be happy because like this is the life I want.
Hmm.
That life didn't happen to me.
So if you could give a kind of like some practical tips for somebody trying to make that change in their own life who may not even have like someone that they can ask for to like mentor them, or maybe they don't have much experience with reading all this kind of stuff and disseminating good literature from not so good literature about this kind of stuff. What would you tell somebody who would be in my position back before you met me?
I would probably tell them something like this: uh, try to seek out a mentor. If you ask often, eventually, most likely, you will find a person at the right time and the right mood to throw you a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
But one way of growing is not mentoring people. It's also kind of just like when you mentor people, you force, say like being a father, you force yourself under a certain code.
Mm-hmm.
You force yourself of being, you know, it's like if you're coaching someone, you become much better at lifting than if you just lift. If you want to be a good student, become a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would say to someone is kind of like that's one part of it. Another part is just don't go into the illusion that because you have fear, then you shouldn't do it. You should do it because you have fear.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to the kind of change that I was trying to verbalize before, where it's looking at things through more of like a challenge focused lens. Like what can you gain from these experiences rather than just the fear aspect? Like,
Absolutely, and that's kind of where it is in a big way. It's just like, well, we have fears of many things. We
yeah,
have fears of asking for help. We have fears of looking at us with accountability. A lot of people also have fears of trying to actually dig up the whole hard stuff in your past.
yeah,
And we're all from different situations. Nobody has a perfect family situation and whatnot.
mm.
Do you have a good family situation?
uh, in the grand scheme of things, probably not. So, admittedly, I'm not super close to my dad's side of the family anymore. After the divorce, there was kind of just a divide in the family, and I'm much closer with my mom and my mom's side than my dad and my dad's side. We're still in contact somewhat, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely not the standard family situation for sure.
Did you learn different lessons from your mom and from your dad? Because I did.
When I was growing up, I would say so. Um, that being said, like most of the time I spent when I was at home was out with friends. I wasn't at home that much, and when I was at home, it was usually just by myself, either studying for school or like playing video games or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, it's not like the standard family situation. We never really had like family mealtime, starting from like junior high, high school era.
Mm-hmm.
So I did learn certain things from both of them, but you know,
What's the most important thing you learned from your mother, for example?
most important lesson I learned from my mom.
Oh, you're probably shaking our floors with your
I have a bit of a
restless leg.
restless leg.
What would you say your mom taught you? The most important things she taught
I think the most important lesson my mom taught me is that you know life can take a pretty dramatic turn, and it doesn't take a lot for that to happen.
you?
Like you can come home one day and your life could be 180, completely different, and turned upside down.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that things necessarily need to shut you down. Like you can always bounce back from that, and learning to cope and adjust and build that resiliency that we talked about before can be very powerful powerful asset in your toolbox for dealing with life, just anything that pops up your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the old man?
Okay. With my dad, you know, it's actually a very similar lesson, but from a different lens.
Okay.
Yeah. Same thing though. Like your life can be dramatically different, and you know, you just got to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's reasonable to learn all the lessons we need from our parents?
No, I don't think that at all. I think that there are many people out there who have much worse family situations than I do, and I think not every one of them has like a dad or a traditional family sort of setting where they can learn certain lessons that they would normally learn growing up. I think that you can have community kind of guidance that way as well, whether that's friends or family friends or even like a colleague, like even like a sports coach. If you're, I know a lot of people learn a lot of lessons from their coach going up through school. Like many of my friends that play hockey going through high school still know their coach that taught them back then. It's not necessarily tied to the biology of a mother and father, but it can be. I think the more lenses you have that you're exposed to, the more experience you can glean from everybody's experiences. In fact, I would say that if your only guardians or your only mentors are your mom and dad, then it might actually narrow your view compared to other experiences.
I would say like mentors come in many shape or forms.
Yeah.
But they are really important.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had mentor, doesn't matter, it could be a 60-year-old guy in a fish store.
Yeah.
It could be someone younger or older. But it is kind of just like it matters, but like you also when you can read and you have the internet and we live in the golden age of information. It's old kung fu thing, like when the student is ready, the mentor will show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I would say. I think it's unreasonable to learn all the lessons from your parents.
Yeah.
I think that's just not how life works.
Mm-hmm.
But you're always learning lessons, and that's the most beautiful thing about this kind of like when you can be a little less self-conscious and you're willing to fail.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the best ways to learn lessons, if you ask me.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. If you don't accept the fact that you can fail, depending on what you're trying to do, then it may not be risky enough for you to grow from. If you're very comfortable making these decisions, chances are you've made them before.
Yeah.
Right.
How is it like I made a point of like making you rather uncomfortable. When it comes to your lifting, your diet, to a lot of things, and I'm like, doesn't make me special or anything like that. It just means that like I moved out on my own when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
I've been 20 years on my own.
Right.
Do you think that like Freud said, no one is truly a man until he raised one? He didn't really mean maybe that you have to have a kid and raise it. You know what I mean? But when you get to a point in your life where you can see some of the things that you were failing on in others, and you're willing to accept the extra work of trying to help them correct it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the phases of learning. You're young, somebody's strong, and you're learning from him. And then you get older and you see someone who's younger but strong, and you see what you did wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? That's another part of it.
Yeah.
It's another part of it, like I don't know what it's called, maturity or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Many things change you. Being a parent is the hardest thing you can ever do.
So do you think we have, not necessarily with children, but with, like you said, like you meet someone younger who has, maybe similar interests, or that you've gone down that path and you've made many mistakes and you're trying to course correct them while they're going through it. Do you think we have an inherent drive to pass the torch, so to speak?
I think we should just accept that we matter in the world. Like, I don't have to matter to a million people,
Mhm.
but I would like to believe, like, I've helped you and I helped other people start businesses.
Mhm.
More than one, more than two, and more than three. But you're not really helping that person. That person has a family, a wife, or children, or a mother. Like, this economy is struggling.
Mhm.
It's up to me to create more jobs. It's up to me to try to make things go better.
Mhm.
You know, I have to look at myself in the accountability mirror instead of complaining about how things are.
Mhm.
What are you doing about it?
That's an interesting way to look at it when it comes to accepting responsibility for your
Yes.
place in the world. One aspect that I think a lot of people are missing too is you know enjoyment. Like there's so much like can I curse on this?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's so much shitty stuff going on like in the world, and everybody's worried about like you know this is the most efficient way to do this. You shouldn't do this. You have to do this. And then everybody gets on social media and then butchers each other with words. You know, if people can be a bit more positive and actually have a discussion that actually leads to progress instead of just verbally bashing each other at the end of it, and I think we'd be in a lot better place. So when it comes to uh, talking to people who are going through life and making mistakes and like trying to show them ways that they can improve. You know, one one missing factor there that all this I'm trying to sum up as is teach them that they can enjoy life and still make progress.
I mean, that's kind of like there's a duality to anything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like one way of looking at it is yes, you can enjoy life.
Mhm.
But I'm at a place now where I love the grind.
Mhm.
Because like life is a grind. You have two options.
Mhm.
Life grinds you, and it's just like grinding you.
Mhm.
Or you learn to love the grind, and life loves you.
So when we verbalize life as a grind, would you say that's like an inherently negative connotation? Like we can learn to love the grind, but I think we can use different terminology because language is pretty powerful.
Definitely, the
Yeah.
power of story is an incredible one to say. It's like it doesn't matter if you study Taoism or Solzhenitsyn, Nietzsche.
Yeah.
It's a general rule. Says humans lived on Mother Nature.
Mhm.
Mother Nature is cruel. Nature is cruel. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
The weather gets cold. There's feast and there's famine.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like adversity is a place to grow.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like we have a word in my language, which would be eldskir,
Mhm.
and that would say baptism by fire.
Right.
Fire philosophically represents purification. It burns away the unnecessary and unuseful part of it, like the phoenix rises up from the fire. Like a fire purifies. A fire kills bacteria, but it can also kill life.
Mhm.
The forest burns, it clears itself and grow again. And a baptism is things that when you get baptized into a religion, you accept a new philosophy, a new concept, a new way of living.
Mhm.
So I think people have to kind of walk into this baptism of fire. That's kind of where I'm saying is this: you can do a lot of things.
Mhm.
And I think people confuse comfort and enjoyment.
I think so too, and I think that's where I was at before. I found comfort. I found enjoyment in comfort, and that's kind of where I think I started to go wrong because I was enjoying just not really doing a whole lot. But now my enjoyment stems from working hard. So like reading research, I enjoy that. I think it's awesome. Like you get to learn things that you get to look at things through different lenses that while you may not necessarily agree with, you can also learn things from. And you know, and that's just other aspects of your life too that you can start to use that sort of mentality with. You don't have to be comfortable to enjoy things, but
That's
I
exactly
feel like
the.
you should be enjoying things.
That's exactly the like. If I was trying to help you with one lesson, that's the lesson.
Yeah.
So you can word it however you want to, and I speak more than one language, so you can use another word and grind.
Mhm.
But it is exactly that. Like if you want the sword, you gotta sharpen it 200 times.
Mhm.
You know, that's kind of exactly where people kind of have to say, like Tao would say, the life is suffering,
Mhm.
but you have to accept that suffering willingly.
Right.
And if you asked me before, what would I give someone advice? I would say, if you don't feel good about yourself, what you can do, I can't remember because I but I think it's Hegel. You can go out, pick up the biggest stone you can carry it for as long as you can, put it down and say to yourself, I might not be good for a lot of things, but this I can do. That's because humans are beasts of burden.
Right.
That's kind of where people confuse in modern days. This is just my unpolitically correct philosophy about it. Self-worth is one thing, and self-esteem is one thing. And I can only speak as a man because I am one, right? You can tell a young man that he should love himself and he should think himself to be awesome and like he's doing all the right things.
Mhm.
But self-worth is more measurable, where a young man has to do challenges and deeds and go slay the dragon to get the princess. And then he feels himself worthy. And I think a good partner in life illustrates their life in such a way that you get inspired to be worthy of them. And I think that's exactly where you kind of like, it's like demanding respect and earning respect.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And I worked as a manager for a few things, and like, you can't demand respect, you gotta have to earn it.
Mhm.
You also have to take out the trash. And if people respect you and you always take out the trash, usually they start taking out the trash. What do I know? I'm a meat and massage therapist. I'm just a nerd stuck in a fantastic body.
Yeah, I feel you.
You know the feeling.
I do. Hairy body.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm going to add one more layer onto that.
Okay.
So we just discussed what you would tell somebody who may not be happy with their current situation.
Mhm.
But what would you ask somebody to consider if they don't realize that their situation could be better? So going back to my experience before, I didn't think anything was wrong because I was in it. How would you challenge somebody to think about their own life that it could be better than the situation they're currently in, even if they are comfortable?
That's a question for you because you were there.
Yeah.
And I helped you change.
Right.
How did it go?
Yeah, so, well, I think I mentioned it before, but lots of anxiety, lots of,
But like, how did I help you?
The biggest way you helped me was basically telling me to nut up. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, that was the biggest phrase for me that came from our meetings, for me going out on my own, was, the worst that could happen is I just go back to what I was doing before, which was already comfortable. The best that could happen is I get successful in my own business and things just only get better. So there was no loss there. And I think that's something that a lot of people can take from this conversation too is, if you consider your own situation, maybe you are in a great place, in which case, awesome. It's great for you guys. Like, keep doing you. But
should you not strive for more?
if you think you can strive for more, and if you think you should strive for more, or if you're just bored with your current situation, like maybe it's not even a bad situation, but you're just bored of it. What's the worst that can happen from trying to change? It doesn't even have to be a dramatic change either. You can make small ones and wade in the waters a bit and not do the same kind of protocol that I did, just jump right in, but you can still change. Like, there's lots of ways.
You did make incremental changes.
I did.
Because
But
like it took you 6 months just to quit your job.
yes. So the incremental change for me was like little bit, and then
And that's kind of what I'm saying to people. Is like I just try to like, if I can, I'm a farm boy. I try to plant the seed.
Mhm.
But like what you learn from a farm is like, you can plant anything; it won't grow on its own.